Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here are some of today's top stories. Deliberations began today in former President Donald Trump's business records trial. It is now up to the jury for a verdict. Could California ban plastic bags for good? That's what some lawmakers want, but how do local shoppers feel? Los Angeles locals protest the Chinese Communist Party for jailing a Chinese journalist. Her alleged crime, reporting on the coronavirus. First up, the jury in former President Donald Trump's business records trial deliberated today on a verdict after receiving instructions from the judge on the law and their duties. Trump spoke outside the court during the afternoon break.
What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I'll stay around here. This is 5 weeks. And 5 weeks of really essentially not campaigning, although I took a big lead in the polls over the last few weeks. Something's going on. Because I think the people of this country see that this is a rigged deal. It's a weaponized deal for the Democrats to hit their political opponent.
The panel of 12 New Yorkers, 7 men and 5 women, will determine whether Trump is guilty of 34 felony charges of falsifying business records related to money payment to an adult film star before the 2016 presidential election. The jury has heard testimonies from a total of 22 witnesses during the 5-week trial. Jurors had to surrender their phones and could only discuss the case when all 12 of them were together during deliberation, and the panel must be unanimous in its decision. While a felony conviction of a former president and a presumptive GOP nominee will be unprecedented, Trump has pleaded not guilty to all felony charges. He called the trial a sham political persecution and vowed to repeal even if the jury reaches a guilty verdict. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito told lawmakers in a letter today that he will not recuse from cases involving the 2020 presidential election or January 6 Capitol breach, despite concerns about 2 controversial flags that have flown on his properties. Democrats have seized on New York Times reports that an upside-down American flag have flown outside the Alito's Virginia home and a separate Appeals to Heaven flag have flown outside his vacation home. They argued the 2 incidents created an appearance of impropriety that required Alito to recuse himself in 2 cases before the Supreme Court involving Donald Trump. Responding to calls from 45 House and Senate Democrats, Alito said he had nothing to do with either incident. Alito said the decision to place the flag was his wife's, and he blamed that decision on a very nasty neighborhood dispute, and said his wife did not fly it to associate herself with the Stop the Steal or any other group. Alito also wrote, "My wife is a private citizen and she possesses the same First Amendment rights as every other American. She makes her own decisions and have always respected her right to do so." A case of highly pathogenic bird flu has been detected at the large egg farm in Iowa. The state says more than 4 million chickens will have to be slaughtered. The disease was found at a farm in Sioux County. Last week, the virus was confirmed at an egg farm west of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Nearly 1.4 million chickens had to be killed. According to the Department of Agriculture, more than 90 million birds have been slaughtered since the outbreak began in 2022. Bird flu has become somewhat common among poultry, but its spread to cattle has increased the concerns about the disease. The virus has been confirmed on dairy cattle farms in 9 states so far. Taiwan's defense ministry said it detected the 28 Chinese military aircraft operating around Taiwan this afternoon local time. The ministry said over 60% of the aircraft crossed the Taiwan Strait's median line or areas nearby. The incident broke out less than a week after Beijing ended 2 days of war games. Beijing said they were to punish Taiwan's new leader for backing Taiwan independence. A senior official with Taiwan's National Bureau said Beijing's aim in last week's drill was to intimidate but not to go to war. Meanwhile, thousands of people protested outside Taiwan's parliament yesterday after it passed a reform package to increase oversight of the government pushed by the opposition but opposed by the ruling party, which did not have enough seats in the parliament to block it. The peaceful protests and sometimes violent confrontations in parliament over the reforms have been taking place against a backdrop of a broader concern about aggression from Beijing. The Chinese Communist regime has revealed Taiwan as its own territory, despite never having ruled the island. Beijing has repeatedly threatened to take Taiwan by force. Plastic bags, paper bags, or tote bags are different ways people can carry items out of stores. In California, stores have been offering reusable plastic bags, but some lawmakers want to limit them in the future. NTD's David Lam asks shoppers for their thoughts.
What do people think about reusable plastic bags? We spoke to some folks in Silicon Valley to find out.
Actually, I don't like it. I every time using my oven bags because a lot of plastic around world in the ocean.
I usually keep the plastic bags that we have for things at home.
I think plastic bags will go right into, the mass that's in our ocean.
California lawmakers recently voted to approve 2 bills that would restrict grocery stores and retailers from offering reusable thick plastic bags. The state already put restrictions on thin single-use bags in 2014, preventing most grocery stores, retail stores, and convenience stores from distributing them, but it reportedly did not reduce plastic consumption as expected.
If it is banned, then we have to make sure that the alternative is very available. For example, maybe jute bag or some paper bags, this kind of things. If they are available, then we can replace them very easily.
I think that'd be smart. I mean, it's too convenient to just pay 10 cents for a bag and use it. It's going to make people remember to either bring their totes or use paper.
State Senator Catherine Blakespear, who co-authored Assembly Bill 2236 along with Senator Ben Allen, argued that consumers actually don't reuse or recycle the thicker plastic bags. Stores usually charge at least 10 cents for plastic bags.
The customer doesn't have to pay on their own. That would be very good, actually, and it would be a very good culture. In many countries, the customer don't pay themselves.
Reusable bags are the way to go. I personally use them. I have some from Trader Joe's. I have some from Whole Foods, Safeway. It's very, very easy. Easy step in your daily routine.
If approved and signed, the reusable plastic bag ban would be effective starting in 2026 in California. David Lam, NTD News, California.
In the United States, we have the freedom of speech allowing us to express our thoughts openly. But in China, speech is often restricted or even punished. That was the case for one Chinese journalist, and now Asian Angelenos are calling for an end to her persecution. NTD's Bill Thomas tells us more.
The coronavirus was first reported in Wuhan, China, but other countries blamed the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, for cover-ups. To this day, the CCP remains highly defensive about its handling of the virus. Recently, many Chinese protesters gathered near the Chinese consulate in Los Angeles to protest the continuous persecution of coronavirus citizen journalist Zhang by the CCP.
She owns the rights to tell the truth. I think we all have the human rights to tell the truth to the whole world. So we are here to support her.
We come here because the government didn't give her the rights, the speech rights, and the human rights, like us.
The Chinese government have to release the Zhang and give her a real freedom for her.
The citizen journalist Zhang was jailed for 4 years for reporting critically about the CCP during the pandemic. Although she finished her sentence today, she is still heavily restricted in her contact and movement and heavily monitored by the CCP. Zhuinxia Zhang says anyone who speaks up against the CCP risks punishment.
Zhan, she is a citizen reporter in China, and she was reporting the Wuhan coronavirus situation to the Chinese public, but the Chinese government don't like that and arrest her in the 2020, and those behavior was against the Chinese human rights and against freedom of speech of Chinese people.
To Zhi Zhang, the protest to free Zhang is not only about her.
This not only a serious violations of her personal freedom, but also a suppression of the Chinese people's freedom.
Even though Zhang still fears political persecution from the CCP, he still believes in standing up for Zhang Jian, who he says took the lead in taking risks for the Chinese people during the pandemic.
We shouldn't be the coward. We need to be a brave man, brave Chinese people. So I believe we have to stand up and protest the Chinese government, and we want to supporting the freedom of speech and human rights for the Chinese people.
Many Chinese people, such as Guan Xianlu, say the truth in China is whatever lets the CCP maintain power and control.
The government, they want to control the people. They didn't allow people say the truth and anything against the government.
Because they stopped to reporting the truth in China, and they also threaten us physically, and they also arrest the people who just go back to China from the Chinese Democratic Party member.
Besides Zhang Jian, there are a large number of people just like her who are imprisoned or oppressed in a variety of ways by the CCP. The protesters say they hope the persecution against Zhang Jian will soon come to an end. Bill Thomas and Jimmy Ma, NTD News, Los Angeles.
We'll take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. After 16 years on the run, a fugitive identified by his bad breath has finally been caught. More on his crime and how he was found. A Colorado State trooper is honored with a Purple Heart after being injured in the line of duty. Charges dropped against the top golfer Scottie Scheffler after being arrested outside the PGA Championship venue due to a misunderstanding. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. After 16 years on the run, a man dubbed the Bad Breath Rapist was caught in California. According to police, he was found at a multi-million-dollar residence in Diablo. It was owned by his female companion of 15 years, who never knew his real identity. NTD's Jason Blair reports.
Tuan Kit Lee was a wanted fugitive for a decade and a half. His case appeared on America's Most Wanted multiple times, and authorities said that hundreds of hours were put in trying to catch him. However, investigators said while his case was beginning to look cold, they caught a break, developing information that he might be near the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in 2005, Lee was found guilty of kidnapping and raping a young woman in Massachusetts. He was wearing a mask during the crime, but he was later identified as a co-worker of the woman due to his foul breath. In 2007, he fled his trial in Massachusetts and was on the run since. On May 28th, Lee was arrested near Danville, California. A chief inspector said in a press release, quote, "There are violent offenders out there who believe they can commit crimes and not be held accountable for their actions." Tuan Lee was on the run for more than 16 years, and the unwavering dedication by law enforcement to locate and arrest him hopefully brings peace of mind to the victim and her family. According to authorities, he will be flown back to Massachusetts and is facing a life sentence. Jason Blair, NTD News.
A Kent County Sheriff deputy who struck and killed a fleeing teen with his patrol car will not face charges in the incident. NTD's Christina Corona has more details on the story.
Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker announced Tuesday that Kent County Sheriff's Deputy Josiah McMains, who allegedly hit 17-year-old Riley Doggett with his cruiser in April, will not face charges. Doggett was a passenger in a stolen vehicle that crashed into parked cars on South Division Avenue and 32nd Street and later died on May 9th at Helen DeVos Children's Hospital. After the initial crash, he and the driver fled on foot before Doggett was struck by the police cruiser. Dash Dashcam footage shows two men fleeing the vehicle before Doggett falls to the ground after being hit by the police car. Becker stated that he plans to charge the teen driving the stolen vehicle with fleeing and eluding causing death and conducting a criminal enterprise, with hopes of waiving the case to adult court. He explained that the deputy was not attempting to use deadly force, but was trying to intercept Doggett when a tire caught the teen's leg, causing him to fall and hit his head. The deputy believed Doggett was armed, but he was only carrying a cell phone. Becker said Tuesday, "Based on the circumstances, I did not find a basis to charge the officer. He's driving past him, trying to cut him off from getting into a neighborhood." Doggett was one of two individuals struck and killed by police vehicles in April. Another man died on April 17th after being hit by an unmarked state police vehicle while fleeing a fugitive team. Christina Corona, NTD News.
A Colorado state trooper was recently awarded the Purple Heart after getting injured during an impaired driver crash last year. He was investigating another DUI crash at the time.
Trooper Kevin Bagley was honored with the Purple Heart Award on May 27th. Last July, he was investigating a DUI crash on I-270 in Adams County. A second impaired motorist crashed into the scene, forcing Bagley over the railing of an elevated portion of the highway. He jumped out of the way and over a guardrail and fell about 30 feet into the riverbank below. He was transported to University Hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. He was discharged the next day and began the long recovery at home. In an email statement to NTD, the department said, "Trooper Bagley's positive mindset and commitment to service were behind his recovery and return to full duty. We are incredibly grateful to have him with us so that we can honor him with the Colorado State Patrol Purple Heart Award." The Purple Heart Award is based off of the U.S. Armed Forces Purple Heart Medal. The state Purple Heart is given to law enforcement who were injured, wounded, or killed on duty.
Shifting over to sports, we have breaking updates on Scottie Scheffler's arrest at the PGA Championship in Louisville. Here's NTD's Carlos Reyes with the details.
Criminal charges against world-renowned golfer Scottie Scheffler have been dismissed, finally bringing an end to the week-and-a-half-long legal saga. The charges stemmed from an incident during the PGA Championship in Louisville on May 17th, when images of Scheffler being arrested and handcuffed went viral online. Jefferson County Attorney Mike O'Connell announced the dismissal of the 4 charges against Scheffler in a brief court session on Wednesday. Scheffler, who was not present in the courtroom, had been charged with a felony for assaulting a police officer with his vehicle, along with 3 misdemeanors. The incident began when Scheffler's vehicle, marked as part of the PGA Tour, approached a traffic control point outside Valhalla Golf Course, where a pedestrian had tragically died. Detective Brian Gillis was managing traffic to allow a bus to turn around when he encountered Scheffler. According to Gillis, Scheffler refused to comply with directions and accelerated, resulting in Gillis being dragged to the ground. However, a thorough review of the evidence, including surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts, painted a different picture. The footage showed Gillis pursuing Scheffler's vehicle and stopping him from entering the course, but did not capture the initial interaction. Furthermore, Gillis faced disciplinary action for failing to activate his body-worn camera during the arrest. O'Connell stated that while Gillis was concerned for public safety, Scheffler's actions did not meet the criteria for criminal offenses. Scheffler, unaware of the pedestrian death, found himself in a chaotic situation where other PGA vehicles had passed without issue. His attorney, Steve Rommins, emphasized that evidence suggested Scheffler was the victim of a misunderstanding, noting eyewitness testimony that contradicted Gillis's account. Scheffler expressed his relief in an Instagram post, calling the incident an unfortunate misunderstanding. Despite the ordeal, Scheffler returned to compete in the tournament, finishing tied for 8th place. The legal resolution also shed light on the tragic death of John Mills, a 69-year-old tournament volunteer. Both O'Connell and Rommins highlighted the importance of recognizing Mills' contributions and extended condolences to his family. Scheffler's attorney mentioned the possibility of a civil lawsuit against Louisville police, but noted that Scheffler had no interest in pursuing it, not wanting to burden the city's taxpayers. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
The producer of the film The Godfather passed away at 94 over the weekend. He was also known for other films like $1 Million Baby and The Longest Yard. He also helped create the hit sitcom Hogan's Heroes.
Albert S. Ruddy, a Canadian-born producer and writer who won Oscars for The Godfather and $1 Million Baby, has died at age 94. Ruddy died peacefully Saturday at the UCLA Medical Center, and his final words were, "The game is over, but we won the game." Tall and muscular, with a raspy voice, Ruddy produced more than 30 movies and was on hand for the very top from The Godfather and $1 Million Baby and very bottom, Cannonball Run 2 and Megaforce, both nominees for Golden Raspberry Awards for Worst Movie of the Year. Producing The Godfather endangered Ruddy's job, reputation, and his very life. Italian Americans were infuriated by the project, which they feared would harden stereotypes of Italians as criminals, and real-life mobsters let Ruddy know he was being watched. One night he heard gunfire outside his home and the sound of his car's windows being shot out. On his dashboard was a warning that he should close the production immediately. Ruddy saved himself and the film through diplomacy. He met with crime boss Joseph Colombo and a couple of henchmen to discuss the script. Ruddy agreed to remove a single gratuitous mention of the word mafia and to make a donation to the Italian American Civil Rights League. Colombo was so pleased that he urged Ruddy to appear with him at a press conference announcing his approval of the movie, a gathering that led to Ruddy's being photographed alongside members of organized crime. The Godfather was a critical and commercial sensation and remains among the most beloved and quoted movies in history. Ruddy was married and had 2 children.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. China is stockpiling oil and gold, raising questions and concerns about preparation for an invasion of Taiwan. More on China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's what we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.